Welcome. Okay, let's kick off. Very, very warm welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I am Andrea. I'm also known in the coaching community as the slow coach, probably because I am a slow runner and I principally work with runners like me who generally run with bigger bodies or older bodies or slower bodies, or certainly those that don't have a lot of inherent talent. And who generally enjoy life in the middle and the back of the pack. And tonight we're going to be talking about Marathons 101, or running your first marathon. So I'll just start with a little picture which actually features me, I think, in my second marathon here in Sydney. If you zoom in really closely, you could probably see the terror on my face. I thought we could just very, very quickly maybe just pop in the chat. Just tell me your name, where in the world you are, what you're training for, and maybe what your hopes are for your event. I think a lot of you are doing Sydney, some are doing Melbourne. I think Sarah's doing Newcastle. So yeah, just pop it in the chat and I'll keep an eye on that while we talk. I'd love to hear, and then I can also just refine what I say to make sure it suits you. Okay. Very quickly, this is what I'm going to run through tonight. I'm going to try and knock this over in about an hour, hopefully not too much beyond that. So, but just very generally, the topics that we're going to run through here. And while I think of it, just a request for you all to please keep your microphones on mute. That'll just make us all more comfortable, unless you specifically want to pop up and ask me a question, which you're welcome to do at any point in time. Pop it in the chat, or unmute yourself and ask, or I'll leave lots of time at the end to ask questions as well. As you've probably noticed, I am recording this session, so please just bear that in mind. If you do switch your camera on, if you do unmute yourself and talk, that will form part of the recording. Cool. Naomi doing a half. There's no only, Naomi. I'm only doing a half. There's definitely no only before a half. 21.1 kilometers is a very long way, even in a car. So good on you. Rosie is in Whangamata. She's training for UTA 22. Another really, really significant different distance, Rosie. I know you know it well, but the challenge with that one is not just the 22 horizontal kilometers, but the 1 or 2 vertical kilometers you do as well. Hey, Tanya, she's doing Sydney. It's her first marathon. That's amazing. So exciting. So I will talk you through as much as I can. Just in case you don't know the backstory, I've been running, actually, that says 12. It's actually probably more like 14 or 15 now. I started running when I was about 40 years old. I'm now 54. I'm an accredited running coach, and I have run, I think, 8 marathons and 2 ultras. Those medals up behind me, the top row are my marathons and ultras, and the ones below are halves and shorter distances. Okay, tonight, as I've said, is specifically for beginners, slower, and back of the packers, or people who are taking on their first marathon. And it's generally going to assume that you've got round about 6 months or more to train. You can do it in less, you can do it in more, but I'm just going to use that as the rough time frame for training when I talk about the build. If you are uncertain about whether you can or should run a marathon, my general advice is that you need to be physically fit and well. You need to have no chronic injuries or disabilities. You can still do a marathon if you have those, but I'm just saying that for most people, I would say almost anyone can do a marathon as long as they are physically fit and well, as long as they generally live with no chronic illnesses or disabilities. And I would advise more or less 2 or 3 half marathons, ideally, before you tackle a marathon build. Some people can do it in less, some people can. It is possible. But generally, I would suggest that you need to be able to be well enough to sustain 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or more hours on your feet. So that's hours of intentional movement. If you think you can do those things, you can 100% do a marathon. There are only three key ingredients to any successful running plan. The first one is consistency. What you do every day matters more than what you do once in a while. Um, Having a plan and following it, following about 80% of the workouts that are set on your plan, running about 3 or 4 times a week, every week for 6 or 8 or 12 or 24 weeks or however long your build is. And making sure that your plan involves something called progressive loading. So that's basically when your plan kind of builds you from, say, a 10K long run to an 11 or 12K long run, and from 12 to about 15, and so on. So generally, progressive plans will go up in load by about 10% per week, very, very roughly speaking. The third most important part of any running plan, not just marathons, is recovery. So I'm going to throw a lot of words around tonight. I'm going to use words like build. I'm going to use words like load. I'm going to use words like adaptation. But one of the key things in all of that is recovery. So on a super, super simple level, all of the things that we're doing, the short runs, the strength workouts, the long runs, are creating a lot of intentional damage to your body. Your Garmin will always say to you that was not productive, unproductive. What it's really talking about is producing lactate. So it's the damage that you do during the workout that goes and creates all the kind of little brokenness in your body, damage to your muscles, damage to your ligaments, damage to your blood vessels, damage to your tendons and fascia, to your breathing mechanisms. That's a good thing. It needs to happen. You need to put more load through your body than you are currently capable of managing. And then you need to recover from it. And it's in that recovery that your body goes in and goes, okay, there's damage here, and that bit's, not strong enough, and that bit's not efficient enough, and that bit's not talking to that bit. And it frantically goes in and very, very, very quickly makes the repairs that it needs to make. And it's in the repair process that it actually gets better at doing what it used to not be able to do so well. Very, very counterintuitive thought to wrap your heads around as marathon runners is that you don't actually get fit while you're running. You get fit while you're resting. So it's the recovery is as important as the workouts. So there you go. Three things, which I will break down a little bit more. I am aware that I'm going through this very, very quickly, and we're going to come to all of those concepts over time. But there you have it: consistency, progressive loading, and recovery. Okay, so you've decided to do a marathon. That's brilliant. We're looking at Canberra, we're looking at Newcastle, we're looking at Sydney, we're looking at Melbourne. Okay, so where do you start? What should your build look like? As we've said, I'm generally assuming that you can run round about a half marathon once you start training for your marathon. This is an example of the training blocks I set for the runners that I took to New York about a year and a half ago. So this is just an example. It's not gospel. It's just a framework of what a marathon build might look like. You can see here that I've got 2 months of a strength build. So, and we're going to talk about what that might look like for a while, but in the next slide. But your strength build is going to be significantly different from your 8 to 12 weeks of a speed build. And that is going to look significantly different from your race-specific endurance build, which again, this one was 4 months long prior to your race day. So this one, I've actually just set this out because I was talking to New York marathon runners. So we had a few kind of the local races penciled in as training events too. But there you have it. So having a periodization of your training, talking about strength and working on that first, then working on speed. And I am very mindful of my audience here. Speed is relative. Speed just means kind of faster than you would like to go. and then your race-specific endurance. So we'll get into a little bit more into the weeds in a second. Here are some samples of what that might look like. So your strength build is when you're specifically building the strength, the cushion in your body that is going to be the kind of trampoline that is able to absorb that massive impact, that massive load that you're putting through your body as you take on these big distances. Now, running is a very, very impactful sport. Every time you take a stride and you kind of come down through the air and you land on one leg, you put exerting something like 3 to 6 times your body weight through simply, only one leg, which at the bottom end of it, near your ankle and your calf, is actually really, really narrow. And those little muscles are, relative to some other big muscle chains in your body, those little ones at the bottom of your legs are actually really, really weak. So there's a lot of impact. And in order to offset any injuries, and in order to make your runs as comfortable as possible, to give yourself as much of a kind of trampoline-like lift to all of your steps, you do need to do strength work. You need to take the strength stuff really, really importantly, really, really seriously. So strength is not just, lifting weights at the gym. In this context, we do things like running up and down hills because your body weighs more when you're kind of carrying it up against gravity. And you're getting that deload as you run back down. You can do a few little time trials or kind of, park run, sort of shorter events just to kind of build up that base engine underneath the strength. Some running specific strength workouts. So those are things like your squats and your calf raises and your deadlifts and your glute bridges, and working on very running specific strength for, calves, knees, quads, glutes, hammies, core, and all of the fascias, especially through the sole of your foot, plantar fascias and things like that. So there's a bunch of strength workouts out there. Just Google strength training for running and follow along. Find a video you like and follow along. Find an influencer on Instagram and follow their program if you like, or you can find some on my website too. But please, please, please do the strength. It's going to be the key to unlocking your race day success, especially early in your build. So that strength build here is obviously where we're focusing on effort. Then usually once you've done 2 or 3-ish months of that, you'll move on to a speed build where you kind of just trying to get your body to go, just revving your needle a little bit past its midpoint, kind of going up into the top range of your ability. And again, hill repeats are a staple here, but so are sprints and surges, intervals and fartlek. And this is when you focus on intensity. So you're kind of running harder than you would like to, often in short spurts. So we're not talking about, tempo runs for 20 Ks. We're talking about tempo runs for 30 seconds or whatever your particular fartlek exercise is in that moment. But this is an intense build, an intense period of your training that's focused on kind of threshold and tempo type stuff. And then once you've got that dialed in, you'll generally move into your endurance. So this is when we're doing your very specific race distance training. So if you're doing your half, if you're doing your full, it would still apply to a 10K or a 2K or an ultra marathon. But this is when you practice your actual race day type endurance. So you might do some over-under runs where you do, in theory, let's just say 10 minutes of slower than race pace and then 10 minutes of faster than race pace and then 10 and then 10 and so on. You might do some longer tempo runs where if you're training for a marathon, you might do a warm-up and then 5Ks at marathon pace and then a 1K walk break and then 5Ks at marathon pace and so on. So you're just kind of building that engine that gets you really, really accustomed to your race day pace. Pyramid runs are a good one here too. You sort of start slower, you build and build and build and build. You get faster than your race pace and then you come back down. And in this endurance build, it's when we really, really, really call that mindset work, that courage and that grit and that resilience and all of those things into play. And don't worry, I'll do a whole section on mindset in 20 minutes or so. The staple across all your training blocks will always be your strength workouts and your weekend long run. So let's just say life gets in the way and you need to drop some of your weekday runs or you've got to move things around. You absolutely can. But I would say that the workouts that you need to preserve at almost any cost, the most important one is always your weekend long run. And of course, it doesn't have to be on a weekend. If your life is such that it suits you better to do your long run during the week, totally fine. I'm just, for most of us, it's a Saturday or a Sunday thing, and you'll generally hear it spoken about as a weekend long run. And that should be supplemented by minimum one, preferably two strength workouts a week as well. Okay, if you're looking for gains, if you're wanting to get fitter, if you're wanting to get faster, if you're wanting to build your VO2 max, if you're wanting to trigger some new adaptations for a new PB pace or anything like that, you're going to find it here in your speed work. So speed, of course, being a relative thing, you know, for me, certainly my speed is nothing impressive, but it's just basically what feels fast and hard for you. And this is the value of having your program that is periodized and placing emphasis on certain workouts. And once again, I'm going to cover this in a little bit more detail. But if you have any questions at any point about any of this, I promise I'll dig into it a bit more. Just ask me. I'm just mindful of time, so I'm galloping through this quite quickly. What gear do you need for a marathon? Very few, to be honest. Your only true essential is a pair of good shoes. Shoes that are properly fitted, preferably by a running specialist store, not a general, athleisure or fashion store. And for those of us who need one, a really good bra. Those are your two kind of investment pieces. Nice to haves are things like a running watch, sports earphones, and then your technology, Strava or Training Peaks, Fitbit, all of those things. You really, really don't need much to run a marathon, so please don't feel you need to invest an enormous amount in technical running kit or recovery boots or anything like that. You can get by with very little. You can also spend as much as you like. It's very easy to go to town. Try not to though. Good shoes, well fitted, and a good bra, and you're set. Once you've got that in place, we also really need to have a proper chat about nutrition. So this is vital for all of us, and for I think almost everyone on this call, being women, it can be a sensitive area too. So I am going to approach this gently, but I will be talking about food. I will be talking about taking on more food than you're comfortable with. I will be talking about carbs and sugars and all kinds of things. So if you are coming to this with any sorts of sensitivities to food, some of you have spoken to me in the past about eating disorders or anything like that. If you'd like to just mute me for 2 or 3 minutes, you are welcome to. But I am going to talk about nutrition in quite a lot of detail now. So you've decided to run a marathon and you want to talk about what to eat while you're training. So this is during your build. You need to eat all the food groups, all of them. All the colors, all the textures, all of the sources of nutrition, including the few that are at the very, very top of the pyramid. So your key with all of this is carbs. But generally during your build, they can be the kind of high fiber, slow release carbs, things like sweet potatoes and pumpkins, all the vegetables. And nuts too can be a very good source of the slow release carbs. You need them. So a lot of diets will encourage you to avoid carbs or go into ketosis and things like that. Those nutrition plans have a place. They really do in general lifestyle, but for the most part, not in a marathon build. Unless, of course, you've had specific advice from a nutritionist to the contrary. But carbs are your friend. Carbs and sugars too, and by sugars I mean the glycogens that are generally made when your body breaks down the carbs, but they can be found in some of the sort of slightly more refined foods too, especially things like the gels and stuff we tend to use on long runs. If you're not sensitive to caffeine, it is a phenomenal benefit to your run training. It is categorically the most powerful legal performance enhancing drug that exists. So if you're not sensitive to caffeine, I do encourage you to use it just before a long run or just before your race day. A cup of coffee, a cup of Coke, or even some caffeine tablets or strips on your tongue. They will make a big difference to your big efforts. We've talked about the slow release carbs already. Now, protein is massively important too, but I would encourage you to use protein as your recovery tool. So if you're going out for a 2 or 3 hour long run, if you try and eat protein before you start running, it's possibly just going to make you feel a little bit ick. So save it for when you're finished. There's a magic window of about 30 to 45 minutes after you've finished an intensive effort in which protein is basically your manna from heaven. It is the building block that your body is going to use to repair all of that damage we talked about. It's going to speed up that process and make it more efficient. So you will get fitter a little bit faster if you eat protein after you've worked out. You can eat it or you can drink it, doesn't matter, and it doesn't have to be very much. In my case, it's almost always a cup of coffee because there's protein in the milk. There's protein in the plant milks too if you don't like dairy. So soy milk is fine. Plenty of protein in most of the plant milks. So coffee, chocolate milk, a boiled egg, a piece of chicken, or if you're vegan or vegetarian, whatever sauce that you feel works for you. Some nuts are very rich in protein too, but try and take some on board because it's going to help. And with marathon training, we're looking for the little gains all the time. The small gains all compound and will make a difference. Hydration is really, really important too. Hydration is important during your workouts. It's important after your workouts. It's important during your recoveries. So please try to drink as much as you can. If you're generally a 6 to 8 glasses of water kind of person, I'm talking about per day, try and increase that to from 6 to 7 glasses a day during your marathon training. Just make sure you hydrate so your body's got ready access to all of the mechanisms it needs to fuel you, to cool you, to help you sweat, to do all of those things. For the most part, we do need to avoid the treats. Save them for your celebration day or as a rare occurrence because those very highly processed white sugars just create an environment that means your body has to kind of work harder to get past them. So if you do need the sugars in some form, try to find it in things like fruit and berries and then sort of more natural sources. Supplements can be very valuable too. Now, this is a minefield and it's going to depend very much on your body and your lifestyle and your health matrix, but do your research on the benefits of things like creatine and magnesium, protein supplements, collagen, vitamin D, vitamin C. They can all play a real part in just keeping you healthy, avoiding the bugs that are going around, and also just making sure that your muscles and your ligaments and your fascia and all of those things remain really nice and pliable and are well fueled. So there's a lot there to dial in, and it takes a while. But that's why the marathon build is so important. So if you are looking at a 6-month training block, remember you're not just training your legs, you're also training your tummy. You're kind of trying to figure out what the nutrition looks like for you, what works best for you, when to eat, what supplements suit you. So you've got to practice, you've got to experiment, and you've got to try. It's a trial and error process. So don't leave it too late. Start thinking about your marathon nutrition as early as you can. Okay, so we've talked about during your build. Now we're going to talk about some specific nutrition to take on board when you're actually running. And the key here is that you actually need more than you think. Now, for most of us, it doesn't come naturally to eat or drink or chew or swallow while we're running, especially once we've been running for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours. It's hard to do. So remember, we've got to train ourselves to do it. We've got to build the skill of eating while we're running as much as we train any other skill. So start early and practice. Figure out what you like and what works well with your tummy. Breakfast before a long run is a good idea for about 80% of people. Most people will get the best out of their run if they've eaten about 2 hours before they leave the house. Now, that's all good in theory, but I don't know about you. I certainly will usually start my long runs at about 6 in the morning, so getting up at 4 to eat breakfast ain't gonna happen. But it's a good theory and it is a good practice, especially for race day. And if it works for you and you can eat 2 hours before your long run, I encourage you to do that. If you can't, that's fine. Just eat something before you start. Getting something into your tummy that will mean your body's got ready access to glycogen. So a banana, a small bowl of oats, some yogurt, a handful of nuts, or a running gel. Just get that into your tummy before you start, and that will help. Especially if you're going to be running for more than an hour, you want to make sure that there's lots of glycogen circulating in your blood. Most of us will use up all our glycogen stores after about 60 minutes or less. For me, I can actually usually start feeling it at about 30 to 45 minutes. It's kind of disappears. So the reason I say that is that you need to start replacing it. So if you're running for more than an hour, you need to start replacing your glycogen at about the 45-minute mark or whatever works for your tummy, making sure it's coming in all the time so your body doesn't have to go looking for alternative fuel sources to keep you moving. So my guide for runners like us who often have, a little bit more bulk, which just means you're carrying more load across longer distance and for longer time, I would encourage you to eat and drink every 30 minutes. And it can be valuable to set a timer on your watch or on your phone, a little alarm that's going to go off and remind you, because it's very easy to forget to do. It's easy to forget if you're listening to a podcast, an audiobook, or music, or you're just in your groove. And it's also especially important on race day because there's so much going on when you're racing, especially if it's your first marathon. You're so excited, there's so much to look at, there's so much to think about that I can almost guarantee that you're going to forget to eat. But the sooner you can get those calories on board, especially the glycogens, especially the carbs, the earlier you get them in, the bigger benefit you're going to have later in the race. So every 30 minutes, eat something and drink something. A very, very, very rough guide is about 1 gram of carbs per kilo of body weight per hour. So I weigh 70 something kilos. For me, that's about 2 sachets of gels per hour. So I just have one every half hour. That kind of keeps me going. This is a very, very rough rule. Your body's going to be different. Your adaptations are going to be different, but it's a good guide, and just set that up. Figure out how many carbs are in your fuel source and just making sure you're getting enough. You need more than you think you need, especially if you say to me, oh, eating makes me feel sick when you run. It does. It absolutely does. But you got to eat anyway. And you got to teach your body to take that stuff on board and learn to break it down and access that fuel. It's the key to your race day success. And as I've said, then don't underestimate the importance of protein for recovery when you finish. So we've spoken about your build, your 4 or 6 or 8 or 12-month build where you're eating the rainbow. But then as you get close to your A race, I want your food to get whiter and whiter and whiter. So all of the rules that applied for the healthy population and for most of the year go out the window. As you approach race week, and especially as you approach race day, it's fine to eat the refined carbs, the white breads, the potatoes, the mashed potatoes, the French fries, the hash browns, the jelly beans, the quick release carbs because you want this really, really rich store of glycogen circulating in your blood. And then on race day itself, it's all white. It's all lollies, it's all Coke, it's all gels, it's all quick, quick, quick release stuff. Okay, but having said that, nothing new on race day. It is the biggest mantra you're going to hear me say a million times. Don't try a new food on race day. Don't try a new kit on race day. Don't try new socks or new shoes or a new hairstyle or anything. You've got to have practiced everything before race day and be confident that it works for you. So your marathon day is going to be very exciting. You're going to run past aid stations that are loaded with tempting looking things. You're going to run past spectators who will have trays of lollies and beers and bagels and I don't know, sandwiches. Only eat them and only drink them if you've had them while you're training and that you know that you work for your tummy, because things can go very wrong very quickly. And if you get into any kind of glycemic distress or tummy distress on race day, it's going to derail you very quickly. So nothing new on race day. Before we get into some more of the science, I just want to remind you that there's an awful lot that happens that supports your running and your marathon build when you're not running. In fact, probably about 50% of your effort happens when you're resting. So let's talk about the non-running essentials. We've talked about strength workouts. Those are absolutely canon. You got to do them. You've got to fuel your recoveries. So protein and eating well on your rest days or eating well throughout your build is going to make a difference. Sleep is your superpower. So for those of us going through menopause or those of us who struggle with sleep, please invest some time into thinking how you can improve yours, because even 20 minutes more a night is going to make a difference to your recovery. Track your sleep score on your watches if that works for you, and try and keep it in the high-ish numbers. Have a look at how much time you're getting to sleep each night and just try and add on 10, 20, 15, half an hour each night is going to make a massive difference, and especially as you approach race day. Napping too can be very valuable, especially after a long run. And when you're not sleeping, try to practice intentional resting. So my goal for myself, and I encourage most of you, at least once a day, is to find 5 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever you can find, whatever's practical, and put your screens aside and intentionally rest. Sit on the couch, ideally put your feet and your ankles higher than your hips so that your legs are draining, and breathe. So that box breathing of 4 beats in, holding your breath for 4, breathing out for 4, holding it for 4, or whatever, but just becoming mindful, but really thinking about the fact that you are resting. An intentional rest is going to have a massive compounded effect over your training, and it's the jewel case that supports the recovery efforts that are happening in those tiny little systems throughout your body. Walking, swimming, cycling, dancing, yoga, any kind of cross training and adaptation efforts are really great as well. As runners, we spend a lot of time moving in this kind of two-dimensional plane. We go forward like this in one line. Our legs move exactly the same way. Our arms move exactly the same way. And we thump and thump and thump and thump in exactly this plane, which is great because that's running. But it is very valuable for your body for all kinds of training reasons, but also general wellness and aging well, that you move in other planes too. So try and do things that make you move horizontally, things like dancing or yoga or ballet or whatever it is, things that make you move in ways that are not just like this, because it's going to preserve that range of mobility. That means you don't kind of suddenly lose your effort and you find yourself at 85 reaching to open a cupboard and you hurt your shoulder because you just don't have that range of motion anymore because all you've been doing is this. So try and move it in as many planes as you can. And at least once a week, try and do something that's kind of cross-training-ish, even if it's just a walk. That's really valuable. And supplements we've already discussed, so I won't double down on that, but yes, they definitely have a role to play in your non-running efforts. I've already said this, but a lot of your progress happens when you're not running. So don't underestimate the little 1% gains that can be had from having your life set up beautifully to support your running efforts. Okay, but our most important non-running essential is mindset. And I believe that for runners like us, this is where your success lies. We already know that you've got grit and tenacity and chutzpah. If you didn't have that, you wouldn't be here tonight. You wouldn't even be thinking about taking on a marathon. So we know you've got what it takes, but you've got to get your mindset right so that you are basically able to intentionally suffer for a really, really, really long time, because that's the skill that we're building, right? So how do you do that? Well, it can start with visualization. This is a really, really powerful tool, and I encourage you to use it. During your marathon build, and especially during your runs, spend some time thinking about what you want your race day to look like. Imagine yourself crossing the finishing line. Visualize your smile, your medal, your friends and your children cheering for you. The feeling of the commentators and the cowbells and the streamers and the lights. Give yourself the joy of picturing that, and that's your reward for working for all of that. But it's not just visualizing the good, it's also visualizing the bad, thinking through what you're going to do if things don't go your way. What will you do if it's raining? What will you do if your knee hurts? What will you do if you get to 30 Ks and you've just got nothing left in the tank? So you're going to visualize all of those problems too, and have little scenarios in your brain where you kind of mapped it out in some capacity so that when it happens, it's not a surprise. When it happens, you've already done it and your brain has trained for it. To do all of that, I really, really encourage you to use a little framework called 2 goals and a why. Now, we're all here tonight because we have the goal of running a marathon. That's amazing. That's for most of us, that's goal number 1. But I would suggest very quietly that you set a second goal as well. So once you've crossed that marathon finish line, what are you going to do? And it doesn't matter what the answer to that question is, as long as it's not what Andrea Doney did more than once, and that's sit on the couch for 6 months. So you need something else that's going to keep you moving after you've run your marathon. Are you going to run a second marathon? That's a perfectly legitimate answer. Are you going to run a second marathon faster than the one you just ran? That's a perfectly legitimate answer. But please believe me when I say your second goal does not have to be bigger than your first goal. It can be if that works for you, but it doesn't have to be. So once you've run your marathon, maybe you want to focus on a 5K PB. Maybe you just want to take part in the kids' color run at school. Maybe you want to join a Pilates studio. Doesn't matter. As long as you have a goal that's going to keep you moving once the first goal is achieved. Because if you do what I did and spend 6 months on the couch, starting again every time is really hard and really unnecessary. So save yourselves the work. Trust me, a goal and a second goal. All of those things, though, are short term, right? Goals are short term. We inevitably meet them, or the time passes, or whatever. So I find it transformative to have a why. Know why it is that you want to do the marathon. Know why it is that you want to be a runner. I've told the story many times, so I apologize for those who've heard it, and at the risk of sounding repetitive, my why has to do with some very, very special people in my life who can no longer run. I lost 2 girlfriends to cancer at different points in time. my husband was diagnosed with cancer about 20 years ago. Fortunately, he's now completely fine. But um, all of those chapters gave me a moment of realizing that I had something that people in my life were desperate for. I was in possession of a healthy body. And at that point in time, I was actually squandering it. So I had a chapter when I was very, very trapped by extraordinary levels of anxiety. I had two very young children. I didn't have much money. We had moved. I didn't know any people. I was I was kind of in this vortex, but what pulled me out of it was this realization, well, the one thing I do have is health. I have the ability to move. I have a range of motion, and there is nothing wrong with me. So, as a gift to the people who I love who can no longer run, I'm not going to take this moment for granted. I'm going to take this very mediocre body and see what it's capable of. And I'm going to give myself the gift of one day when I can no longer run, at least looking back on my life and going, at least I did that. At least I gave myself those sets of memories. At least I did well there. So that's my why. And on the days, and there are many of them, including today when I just didn't want to run, that is the script that I run in my head. Why am I doing this? I run because I can. I run on behalf of the people who I love who can't. And that changes everything. And suddenly it is so much easier to get out the door. Now, your why is going to be very different to mine, but I do encourage you to think about it. Why do you want to run the marathon? And I bet you it's not just because, you want to be in pain for 8 hours. I'm sure there's more to it than that. So make sure you can articulate that for yourself. Put it into very clear words and then use that as your mantra. I'll often write it on my arm and then I can look at that while I'm running. Do whatever it takes, but find your why, articulate it, and use it to propel you out the door. So there we go. I've said that. Have a mantra. There's many of them. Pinterest is full of them. All the running groups, everyone you'll meet will have a different mantra. There's some great ones out there. Find yours and use it. And then please, please, please plan a reward. It's not all just about suffering. It can be about a night in a spectacular hotel at the finish line, or a really, really, really big, delicious meal, or that expensive bottle of champagne that's been sitting in the fridge for months, or the new outfit, or whatever. But you deserve a reward. So plan that and have that on your vision board as well. All right. Mindset is pivotal to your success. Basically, what you need is the skill of being comfortable with being uncomfortable. Embrace the suck. That's what you signed up for, right? It is going to be hard. Marathon running is very hard. If it was easy, everyone would do it. So don't shy away from that. It's a hard thing to do, and you have chosen to do the hard thing. You are the person who can do hard things. That's part of who you are becoming as a marathon runner. Don't shy away from it. And when the hardness arrives on the run, you can kind of go, oh, here you are, friend. I've been looking for you. I've been waiting for you. Let's suffer through this together. Okay, it's all about your ability to suffer, but not give up. Don't give up. Use your mindset, use your resilience, use your mantras. Put your left foot in front of your right foot, and then put your left foot in front of your right foot, and just repeat that. If you do that enough times, you will get to the finish line, guaranteed. Okay, so we've trained hard, we've eaten well, we've worked on our mindset, we've got it all done. We're approaching the taper end of our marathon plan, and race week is looming. Now, what do we do? This is where the logistics kick in. All right, in race week, I encourage you to do all of these things. Cut your toenails. It's a big one. You don't want the sharp toenails on race day can bleed and over time. So cut your toenails. If it makes you feel more comfortable, go for a bikini wax. I just find that if I'm feeling nice and clean and smooth, then I'm less prone to chafe. And there's just a little bit of psychological doping in that too. Fuel. Your race week is when those white food groups come into play and focus on your carbs. Now, again, I don't underestimate how hard this can be. Most of us have been taught to shy away from those, the pyramid end, the sharp end of the food pyramid. But that has very much been debunked when it comes to endurance sport, and you absolutely need the carbs. So a spoonful or two of extra rice, mashed potatoes, French fries, hash browns, bread, soft drinks, wherever you can get them, take them on board during race week. Hydrate. We've already touched on that, but this is really critical. Hydration doesn't start on race day. It doesn't start the night before race day. It starts in the days and weeks and months leading up to race day. Drink as much water as, no, that's not right. Drink more water than you would normally drink. It's really very, very valuable. And then think about your actual race day logistics. Plan your commute. How are you going to get to the start line? If you're in a new city, you need to really think carefully about train timetables or Uber lifts or, what are the road closures like? Will it mean that it's going to take you longer to get there? Are you going to meet a friend? Is someone going to pick you up? But have all of that stuff figured out long in advance. It's going to make a difference that you're not sort of panicking on the race day suddenly, oh my God, how am I going to get there? Also, plan your kit. So by now you would have worn your race day outfit several times on your long runs, and you've got that in your wardrobe already. You're not going to wear anything new. You're going to plan your kit. You're going to pin on your bib. You're going to have it all ready and laid out. And you're also going to think about your things like your disposable kit. If it's going to be cold on race day morning, will you have something that you can throw away at the start line? So I actually have a little box in my cupboard behind me where every time I'm doing a wardrobe purge and there's a jumper or one of my son's outfits that they no longer wear, it's about to go to the charity bin, I actually just pop it in there and then that becomes the thing I use on race day and I can throw it away at the start line. So think about what you're going to use to keep warm on your commute in. Also think about what you're going to need at the finish line. So if your race is a point to point, you might want to organize a drop bag. That's something that you would usually leave at the race expo in the days before your race. But what are you going to wear when you cross the finish line? And have that packed and have that sorted as well. So think through all of those things. And then don't underestimate in your race week the importance of that intentional rest, this tapering that we're doing, and sleep banking. So if you can get anything between 10 minutes and 2 hours of extra sleep per night, whatever you can get in race week. And of course, I say this with my tongue in my cheek because I know most of us have kids and jobs and lives and menopause and blah, blah, blah. But if you can find even a few minutes of sleep, extra sleep every night during race week, please bank it. It's going to make a difference because it brings us to the night before your big race. If this is your first marathon, it's possibly going to be a bit of a restless one. This is the night where you charge all your tech, your watches, your phones, anything else you're going to need, your earphones. Make sure they're all fully charged. Eat well the night before and hydrate. Pasta, we always hear about the carb loading dinners. Pasta is your friend. Pizza, bread, whatever. Make sure you have a really good meal the night before. No alcohol. It's a big impediment to your cardiovascular system and to your blood circulation and to it does little micro bits of damage that you just don't want to deal with on race day. So give yourself this gift and just for the one night or the two or three if you can, then before race night, try not to drink any alcohol. Save that for your celebration. Go to sleep early. Get into bed as early as you can. Set your alarm. If you're worried about things, set your second alarm or ask a friend to call you in the morning. But then brace yourselves because the chances are you probably won't sleep very well. And I don't want you to worry about that. So I think all of us here will probably, know what, menopause does to our sleep, what nerves and fear do to our sleep. So if you have a restless night, if you have a bad night, it's fine. The science is pretty clear that the one night before your race, it's a bonus if you get a good night's sleep, but it'll make no difference if you don't. So just let that fear go. Do what you can to get through the night and make your way to the start line. So now let's very quickly talk about race day. Just got to move this because I can't see what I've written. Okay, this is the day that you will need to eat breakfast. So usually you will be getting up very, very early anyway. So please try to eat something on race day. A small bowl of oats, a piece of toast, a banana, anything. But getting something into your body about 2 hours before your race time starts is going to make a difference. Then get dressed methodically and slowly. This is going to include things like taking care of your feet. If you have hot spots where you get blisters, make sure you cover that in Vaseline. Tape things that are likely to chafe. For me, it's often under my bra line, kind of here under my arms. I'll make sure I put sort of physio tape or body glide to protect me from that chafing. Prepare your hair. For me, it's all about the braids, but do whatever it's going to make you feel good. If you wear contact lenses, get those in and make sure you're comfortable. Pack things like your sunnies. But yeah, all of that methodical kind of prep is really important, and give yourself time to work through it slowly and carefully. Then you're going to need to pack your race nutrition. So that's going to mean your gels and things like that. You can stuff those into the pockets of your leggings or one of those big race belts. Make sure you've got enough to get you through the race, and usually one extra just in case you drop it or need it for any reason. So pack your race nutrition. Depending on what kind of race it is, depending on what the race rules are, you can also think about wearing a hydration vest because you can fit a lot more food in there. Packets of jelly beans or marshmallows or putting Coke into your hydration bladder, tailwind or whatever. If that works for you, have that all packed and ready, get it organized on race morning and make sure you take it with you. Leave time for your commute to get there comfortably without feeling rushed. Time to stand in the queues for the loos, and they can be very long. And sometimes you'll need to go more than once just because you're nervous. So make sure you have more time than even seems rational. So for me, it's often like a full hour. I'll get there a full hour before I need to start running, just so that I've got time to fuss and chat and take selfies and go to the toilet at least twice. When you're standing at the start line, try to eat something. So once again, this is where your gels come on board. Oh, look, speaking of which, my tea's being delivered. Thanks, love. Yes, eat something on the start line. And again, this is where caffeine comes into play. So if you are caffeine tolerant, it's a great time for a caffeine strip or a caffeine chew or the first gel of your race to have to be caffeine rich in some capacity. You probably don't need to warm up for a marathon. Now, this is a bit of a controversial one. If you were an elite, if you were training for the Olympics, if you were planning on winning the marathon, I would be having a very different conversation with you. But I think that for most of us, a marathon is long enough that we'll use the first 2 or 3 or 5Ks as a warm-up anyway. And if you try and do an extended and kind of panic-driven warm-up on the start line, I think you're really just wasting energy that you are better off preserving. So for me, I don't fuss. Maybe a few nervous squats, some calf raises just to wake the feet up. But there's no need to do a prolonged warm-up on race day. This is the big one. Don't go out too fast. And I know you're all sniggering and going, oh, she hasn't seen me run. She doesn't know how slow I am. But the thing is, I can almost guarantee you that you will make this mistake. I certainly did on my first marathon. I almost don't know anyone who hasn't done this. Again, I'm mindful that we're speaking contextually here and going, what's too fast for you might be very slow for someone else and vice versa. I just mean that have a very clear idea of what your race strategy is. Generally, most of us will know our approximate race pace and try not to go faster than that. The thing is, you're going to be tapered, you're going to be fit, and you're going to be fueled. And you've got these gazelle-like runners coming past you. You've got race day vibe, you've got commentators, you've got music, you've got bands, it is so overwhelming, and you are so excited that you won't notice that you are going faster than you usually do. And I'm pleading with you to pay attention. Don't do that. Put your pace, write it in big letters on your arm, or have it in big numbers on your watch so that you can watch it and stay under your predicted race pace for the first kilometer or two and just settle in. Slow down at the start because it's going to pay off later in the race. Walking the drink stops is a great strategy. In fact, for many of us, we will have a walk-run combo set for the whole race. And that's a great thing to do if that works for you. But if you're planning to run everything, I would still encourage you to walk the drink stations. So slow right down to a walk, grab your cup. You can even have a second one if you need it, and just drink while you're walking. Otherwise, you're trying to drink while you're running and just tipping it down your throat. It's a great recipe for choking and coughing and getting upset. So walk the drink stops, and it's also just a great way to regulate your heart rate, catch your breath, reset your mindset and all of those things. Remember to eat and drink every 30 minutes. And most importantly, enjoy yourself. Make the memories because look where you are. You are running your first marathon. You have worked so hard for this. You've skipped social events and you've run all day on Sunday and you've nursed yourself through injuries and niggles and, yawned your way through meetings and you've put time and effort and heartache and heartbreak and all of this work into this day. So make sure you treasure it. Soak it all in. Don't rush through it because this is what you signed up for. This is an amazing day and make sure you remember it. Stop and take selfies. Stop and dance with the bands. Enjoy it. But this is where we get to the ugly side of marathon running because it's scary, right? We're taking on something that possibly we don't know if we can do. Like, am I really capable of this scary thing? Or who am I to think that I can run a marathon? What if I don't finish? What if I get injured? What if it doesn't go to plan? What if I can't do it? What if they laugh at me? The fear will arrive loud and clanging in all kinds of ways that you can't even always predict. Fear is a big part of marathon running. But remember, we are people who are choosing to look fear in the face. We are choosing to do marathons because we want to be a version of ourselves who can do the big, hard, scary things. So make friends with fear. Do this early because she's fear. Is fear a she? I don't know. He is going to be a constant companion. Here's my little diagram for what to do if you're feeling scared. I want to do this. Great, do it. But I'm scared. Great. Do it scared. Just feel scared and do it anyway. Put fear in your pocket and take it with you. Because you know what is more scary than not running your marathon? Is sitting in your rocking chair in 20 years' time going, I regret not running that marathon. I regret not trying. I regret not becoming the version of me that I think I might have been able to be. So look fear in the eyes, tell it to fuck off, or tell it to come with you. But you're going to get past this. That's part of your job as a runner. You are the person who can do the hard things. You don't want to be a person who lives with regret for the things you dreamed of because you felt too scared of failure, people's opinions, and change. There are a few little details that I would like to run through with race etiquette because obviously not everybody knows these, especially if you're not familiar with races, especially if you haven't run a marathon before. The most important one is that you start in the correct wave. So when you sign up for your marathon, the organizers will often ask you to predict your starting time, and then they'll assign you a wave or a color or a group or a letter or something like that. Please start in the group that you are allocated to. Um, if you feel let's just say you've been put in a group that it's likely to be too fast for you, it's absolutely fine to drop back. Almost every race in the world will allow you to start in a slower group than the one you've been assigned to. There's usually no issues with that. But please don't start in a group that's faster than the one that you've been assigned to. You just won't make any friends that way, and you'll arguably hold up runners who also deserve that race day experience. So start in your allocated group or in a group that's slower. Don't try and move up in the field as a way of banking time. It really is frowned upon in running circles. If you're planning on walking or doing walk-run intervals or stopping, just make sure you're well to the side and not likely to obstruct someone behind you. And hold your line when you're running. So you've probably experienced this at park runs or fun runs or whatever. When someone kind of cuts across you or suddenly swerves, it can be very disconcerting. It can put you off. It can even interrupt your gait to the point that you kind of almost trip or cramp. So please don't do it. Hold your line when you're running. And if you do need to change line, or if you do need to change abruptly, or, go around a corner or something, just kind of glance behind you before you do it to make sure that you're not impeding anyone behind you. Don't push. I doubt very much that anyone here would do that, but it is a thing, especially at the started kind of crowded funnel thing. Don't feel the inclination to put your hand out and push the person in front of you out the way. I got pushed for the first time at Parkrun a few weeks ago, and it was really horrible, scary, and unpleasant. And because you can't see behind you, so you don't know it's coming, and then it's yeah, don't do it. And I know I'm talking to the converted, but just have it in your toolkit. No pushing. When you get to the drink stations, you're going to notice that everybody goes for the first table. Everyone kind of pulls off to the side, and they see the drink table coming, and the crowd will kind of condense, and everyone will go for the first 10 cups on the table. A little hack for you to remember is that there's usually a lot of tables. They're usually strung out. There's usually 2 or 3 or 5 or more of them. And there's as much water on the far end of the table as there is at the beginning. So you can kind of allow that crowd to go for the first set of cups and take your time. You'll be able to get one with a bit more room to breathe further down in the funnel. When you're drinking or you're running or whatever, we often get that sort of feeling in our mouths, and there's phlegm but please, please, please don't spit. It's a thing that runners do, and it drives me nuts, especially when they're kind of spitting into the slipstream that you're about to run into. I just think it's gross. If you do need to spit, just pull off to the side and do it where you're kind of not gonna, potentially foul somebody else's air. I just think it's awful, but it happens. I think it's a great idea and a great practice in a race context to offer encouragement and start conversations with other runners. Comment on someone's shirt, mention that you also did that race, or ask them where they've traveled from, or tell them they're doing a great job, especially in the tail end of the race, especially when you can see people are starting to struggle. So starting conversations and making friends is a brilliant thing to do on a marathon. I mean, let's face it, most of us have got 5 or 6 or 8 hours or more. It's a long time and plenty of time to make friends. But don't offer advice unless you're asked. So I have had runners, exclusively male runners, goes without saying, but who tell me that I need to amend my form or change my gait or whatever. Just don't do that. If they ask you for advice, give it, but don't offer advice unsolicited. Okay, and now what do we do if things go wrong? So this is a big part of the picture for runners like us. And weirdly, I do think that our superpower is often the fact that we are already quite comfortable with failing. Most of us have done this many times in various aspects of our lives. So it's going to come a lot more easily to you, weirdly, than it does to the elites. But make friends with failure. Not every run is going to go to plan. Not every training run is going to go to plan. Not every workout is going to go to plan. Not every week is going to go to plan. And sometimes it's sad to say that not every race goes to plan. So just kind of approach that softly and with the knowledge that it might happen. Failing is a big part of learning. And I know you would have heard this throughout your lives, but you only, what's the saying? You only uh, fail or you learn or you don't, well, someone else will know what it is. But basically, um, there's so much to be learned from failing, especially during the training runs. Doesn't go to plan. Well, why is that? Did you go out too fast? Did you not eat enough? Did you not sleep well the night before? Have your kids been sick? Is your boss being a pain and you know your mental load is too high? What are the reasons for things not going to plan? And then figure it out and do what you can to buffer yourself against that in future. It's a good idea to have an A, a B, and a C goal for your race. So most of us have a very clear idea of what we would love the race to look like. You might have a time in mind. You might have a feeling in mind. Having an A goal for your race is a great idea. But giving yourself versions, and we spoke about that visualizing earlier, giving yourself versions of the day where it doesn't go perfectly to plan, but it still goes pretty well. What are you going to do if that old tendonitis injury rears its head at 10 Ks? Oh, well, then I'm going to slow down and I'm going to incorporate more walk breaks and I'm going to change my walk run intervals from every 10 minutes to every 2 minutes or whatever. You're going to have a strategy for how the race looks at version A, version B, and version C. And as we've already said, it's a horrible and harsh, but unescapable reality that things don't always go to plan, and races don't always go to plan either. So, what do you do? How do you cope with that? You've never done a marathon before. You don't know what you're in for. You don't know what might happen. You don't know what might not happen. What are your tools? How do you get through it? Okay, so let's talk about the nerves and the fear and the anxiety. That's probably the biggest universal factor with all for all of us in approaching this big, hairy, scary goal. There's a strategy to cope. Okay, and this is my if-then strategy. So if X happens, I'll do Y. And just here's a couple of them. Oops, yep, sorry, it's the if-then plan. If, for example, I can't sleep the night before, that's okay. I'll bank sleep the week of the race and I'll remember the research. One bad night of sleep doesn't impact performance. If I'm overwhelmed and tearful and scared and afraid at the start, then I'm going to use my breathing. I'm going to use my mindset. I'm going to use my mantra. I'm going to remember all the times I got through hard things before. I'm going to remind myself that everybody feels this, including everyone who's standing next to me at the start line. And we're all here together. If I'm 5 or 10 or 20 Ks in and the self-doubt arrives and suddenly that critic is saying, oh my God, who do you think you are? Look at you. You look ridiculous. You can't do this. Self-doubt arrives loud and clear. I'll acknowledge that voice and I'll reassure myself that I was expecting that voice. I was expecting that critic to arrive. I've felt this way before. I'm okay. I'm in control. I can do hard things, and this too shall pass. If I need the toilet, which is very, very common because you've been drinking and eating these highly processed foods, that's okay. There's a portaloo every couple of Ks. I'm going to stop. I'm going to go to the toilet and I'm going to stay calm and I'm going to keep my watch running. And I'm just going to remember that the 2 or 3 or 5 minutes that I spend in there is a drop in the ocean over the 42.2 kilometers. If I'm struggling with the distance or the elevation, and this often happens, especially at the 30K mark, we talk about that wall that arrives at 30Ks. That's when I'm going to focus on my mantra. I'm going to remember that I'm strong and fit and healthy. And I'm going to think about how everyone around me is probably feeling exactly the same at that moment in time. And I might even strike up a conversation with someone about it. If I feel sick or I'm struggling to eat and I can't do what Andrea told me to do, which is eat something every 30 minutes, that's okay. I'm going to switch my solid food to liquid food. I'm going to use some electrolytes or some tailwind or just whatever the aid station has to offer. If I can, I'm going to duck off the course and I'm going to get some fruit juice and I'm going to drink my carbs. Small sips of fluid. I'm going to slow down a bit. I'm going to aim to get nutrition in any way I can. And I'm going to remember that I'm going to have a lot in the tank from all the carb loading I did in the weeks prior. What do you do if it's too hot? Like 3 years ago, Sydney Marathon Day was 34 degrees. Or what do I do if it starts bucketing with rain? Or Queenstown Marathon last November, we got snow and hail on the race. If the weather doesn't suit me, um, oh well, not much I can do about it. I'll remember that I've trained in all conditions. I'll dress appropriately. I'll do what I can to mitigate. And I'll create a mindset where I'm just going to get this shit done no matter what. Just watch me. Don't get in my way, Mother Nature. If I don't hit my goal time, oh well, so what? I'll be okay. I'll remember that I'm still loved, I'm still proud, and I'm still part of the team. This is chapter. I'm not defined by just one race. It's just one run. There'll be many, many, many more marathons. What happens if you don't make the cutoff? What happens if the sweepers arrive and tell you you need to step off the course? That's a big one, right? Especially for runners like us. Well, that's fine. You have the option of stopping if that's what works for you on the day. But you also have the option of finishing on your own terms, at your own pace. You can step onto the sidewalk, the pavements, and just keep running. Run your own race until you get to 42.2 Ks. You can unpin your bib if you want to, because no one can make you get into a sweeper bus. That would be kidnapping. A marathon is defined by completing 42.2 kilometers, not by the time that you took to run that distance. So you can do any race you want on any terms that you choose. You are the master of that particular destiny. And if all else fails, I'll know that I am braver and stronger and fitter than any previous version of me. This is my marathon era. I'm now a person who signs up for marathons, and making it to the start line was actually my victory. A marathon is actually the hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of kilometers that you do in training. Your 42.2 Ks on race day is simply your victory lap. Okay, I'm actually quite a little bit over time. I'm sorry, I did try to go quickly, but my very, very, very quick commercial break here is that if you do want a coach to help you through this, to plan your build and make sure that it meets your specific physiology, your specific life conditions, uh, that's where a coach comes into his or her own. And if you would like me to be your coach, please reach out. I'd love to. And for those of you who are curious about possibly running away, we are going to Queenstown again in November 2026. So if you'd like to come along, please just chat to me or browse my socials or go to my Running Away website to find all the details about race packages there that include accommodation, most transfers, a couple of extras, and of course, your preferred race distance. All right, I'm going to sum up. This is me writing, I think, at the end of my first or second marathon. And I said in my blog, the distance wasn't really 42.2 kilometers. The distance was actually between the version of myself 10 years ago who couldn't run for the phone and the version of me that showed up at the start line. The distance wasn't the marathon, it was the gap between the part of me who wanted to stop and the part of me who was determined to keep going. The finish line wasn't an arch across the road, it was the moment in time when I realized I was capable of finishing. The real battle wasn't in my blistered feet, but in a quiet war fought above my shoulders. And if a book-loving, Coke bottle glasses wearing musical theatre nerd with a penchant for renovation shows and Harry Potter can transform herself into a marathon runner, what else is she capable of? It's not about the run, but it's got everything to do with the run. Okay, if you need more information, you can find me on my socials, on my website, and I'd always love to chat. Now, I know it's late. I do rabbit on. I apologize. There was an awful lot to cover there, and there's probably a whole lot I missed. So if you have any questions, I will stay here for as long as you need me, and I would love to chat. So please, please, please ask me your questions while I drink. This is not really gin. It is tea, I promise. Anybody got any questions for me? Shirley says, thank goodness for caffeine being allowed. Life is good. I agree. Have you all gone to bed? No questions. I won't rush you. Here we go. How much does your coaching cost? Great question. There's two main options. You can train with me in person in St. Ives if you're nearby. My groups cost about, I think it's about $140 for 10 sessions. If you're online or further afield, coaching, there's usually a $200 flag fall fee, and then it's $75 a month. That flag fall fee you only ever pay at once. So if you train for a few months, then life gets in the way and you need to pause and resume. You can do that as many times as you like. It stays at $75. Your plan includes an itemized it's a plan on Training Peaks, which syncs with your watch and coaches through your workouts and gives you these amazing reports on the changes in your physiology, in your VO2 max, in your training stress scores, in your lactate outputs. But basically, all of that's just a complicated way of saying we can track whether the training is working. And if it's not working, we meet at least once a fortnight to talk. We figure out what's working, what's not working, what works best for you, what should change. Are you on track? Are you not? How can I help? So it's quite interactive that way. If you don't want the interactive version, you can just pay $200 for like a standard plan, which I will deliver again to your watch. And I can amend it, I can answer your questions, but we don't kind of interact quite as often. We don't have those fortnightly calls. Thanks, Alison. You're welcome to unmute and talk if it's easier than typing. Oh, here we go. Shirley said, toilet time before the race. Any tips? Apologies for the topic. No, it's a good one. It's a great topic. So, I mean, most of us are really worried that we're not going to poo before the race or that we are going to poo during the race. Right. That's kind of our universal fears. So, making sure you get up with enough time before you leave home, that can really help. Usually, hopefully, you're regular enough to get things moving. Moving around the house before you leave, having a cup of coffee, things like that can hopefully give you enough time to go to the toilet. If not, you go when you get to the start village. And as I've said, sometimes you need to go more than once. So make sure you've got time in that block. But if you get to the actual start line and you still haven't gone, or you still feel like there's more to come or whatever, it's a real reality of marathon running. Um, Reassure yourself that there are usually toilets every 3 to 5 kilometers. You can normally get a race map ahead of time and figure out where they're going to be. So just step off the course and go when the time is right and go to the loo. Um, in trail races, so this doesn't apply for Sydney or Melbourne or anything like that, but in trail races and absolute emergencies, it's very acceptable in the running condition to sort of just step off the road and squat behind a tree. And just be kind to yourself and realize that unfortunately it's unglamorous and it's, these things happen, but it's very universal. And also, if you are really, really worried, a lot of runners do take an Imodium just at the start line just to make sure that they, can stay in control of things while they're running. So you can use that if it works for you. But again, I would suggest you practice it and don't do it for the first time on race day. I am mindful that I'm talking very, very quickly, and that's purely just because I'm trying to cover so many topics. But if you do want more information, please just tap me on the shoulder. Um, no questions for me. Would you come to Harvey Bay? Sure, I'd love to. I've never been to Harvey Bay. One of my clients, Pauline, lives up there, and I'd love to see it. Alicia, thanks for all that. Thanks, Alicia. Very important. The two goals and a why. Does the second goal turn into the first goal and then you find a new goal to add to it? Yes, essentially, yes. At any point in time, wherever you are, I'd encourage you to have two goals. So once you've passed the first one and goal number two is your only, then, create another one. Make sure you're always looking ahead to two goals and that is underpinned by a why. Please bear in mind that goals don't have to be, they don't work for everybody. So, I should have said that. If goals are not your thing, you can set that piece of advice aside. But generally, it works. And it's just a nice way of measuring your progress on a ruler, as it were. Stopping at McDonald's near the race is a good way to avoid the crowds. Great tip, yes. The toilets at the train station where you get off, or the bus station, those are often a good option. McDonald's are a great option, or any fast food outlet. Just a little side note is that I've been known to plan my training runs around McDonald's, not only for the toilets, but also for the hash browns. Great running fuel. McDonald's are gold. Okay. Does the change in diet the prior week make you more constipated? Shelley, there's going to be a very big it depends factor here, but I would say, if anything, it makes you less constipated because you've kind of got all of this, unstructured food. It's very, very white food in your gut that kind of tends to want to come out quite quickly. It's a very unglamorous topic. No, it doesn't make me constipated, but it's a good idea to practice this. And unfortunately, it's just one of the things you only get to know with time. Um, in menopause, everything makes you constipated. Well said, Meredith. Yeah. Thanks for the info. And you can see my fear. Yes, fear. I mean, it's our constant companion, isn't it? The runners like us. But I would just encourage you to look around when you're running, when you're at your 20 or 30 or 40K mark. The people who are left on the road with you, they're all carrying that same fear, and you're all in it together. And you absolutely would not be on this call tonight if you weren't capable of doing it. I promise you. It's easier than you think. Running a marathon is easier than surviving a divorce. It's easier than going through a miscarriage or losing a job that you love or burying a best friend. That you've probably done so many things in your lives already that are harder than your marathon. And in fact, those of us who are coming to marathon to endurance training as a form of trauma therapy, you'll actually find those 5 or 6 or 8 hours are probably the easiest out of everything you've gone through. So give yourselves some slack. It is going to be hard, but in many ways it's also easier than you think it is. All you have to do is just keep moving. That's it. Left foot, right foot, repeat. Cool. How am I doing? Any other questions? Well, you are very welcome to email me, text me, WhatsApp me. You can reach me by my social media channels, DM me. I love talking about running, so I'll answer any questions I haven't already covered off, and I'd love to help. But apart from that, thank you very, 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 very much for being here tonight. And I hope that was informative. Put your name on your shirt. Oh, sorry, someone just said that. Put your name on your shirt. That's a great tip. Lauren said, put your name on your shirt. The crowd calling your name is the biggest motivation on the day. That's a great tip. Absolutely. Have I got it on this shirt? No. But I usually have them printed on most of my slow coach shirts. It's a good idea. Or just a piece of masking tape with your name written on it, because then the crowd will go, go, Lauren. And you just feel like a rock star. Do that. That's hubby who has done a lot of marathons. Yeah. All right. I can see lots of people dropping off. It's bedtime for many of us. Thank you again.